Part 1. The assignment. Jake Rodriguez had been working security for 3 years at the International Space Research Center. But nothing could have prepared him for the call he received that Tuesday morning. His supervisor's voice was unusually serious when he explained the situation. Earth had made contact with beings from another world, and 2 of them were coming to stay at their facility for important talks about peace between their peoples. Jake, I need you to understand something, his boss said, looking directly at him across the desk. This is the most important assignment in human history. These visitors are not just guests. They represent their entire civilization, and how we treat them will determine whether humanity has a future among the stars or remains alone on this planet. The weight of those words hit Jake like a truck. He had always taken his job seriously, but this was different. This was about the future of everyone he had ever known and loved. His hands felt sweaty as he nodded and accepted the assignment. The facility had been preparing for weeks. Special rooms were built with advanced air filtration systems because the visitors breathed a slightly different mixture of gases than humans. The walls were lined with materials that could block their advanced scanning technology, keeping both sides safe from any misunderstandings. Everything had to be perfect. When the day finally arrived, Jake stood in the main hall wearing his best uniform, trying to look professional despite the butterflies in his stomach. He had studied everything available about these beings, called Etherians, but reading about them and actually meeting them were 2 completely different things. The transport vehicle looked nothing like the spaceships in movies. It was smooth and white, making barely any sound as it landed in the secured area. Jake watched through reinforced windows as 2 figures emerged from the craft. They were tall, maybe 6.5 feet, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Their features were surprisingly human-like, but their eyes were larger and completely silver in color. The older one moved with the confidence of someone used to leadership. Later, Jake would learn her name was Zara, and she was something like an ambassador for her people. The younger one, called Kira, seemed more nervous, constantly looking around and staying close to her companion. Both wore simple white robes that seemed to flow like water when they moved. Jake's first shock came when he was briefed on the living arrangements. Due to last-minute security concerns and the special environmental needs of the visitors, the original guest quarters had been deemed unsafe. Instead, they would all stay in the emergency safe house, a small bunker-like structure designed for crisis situations. You mean we're all staying in the same room? Jake asked, hoping he had misunderstood. The safe house only has 1 bedroom, his supervisor explained, but it's equipped with everything they need to survive comfortably. The bed is large enough for all 3 of you, and the room has continuous air filtration and monitoring systems. Jake felt his face turn red. Sir, with respect, I don't think sharing a bed with 2 alien women is appropriate for a security officer.
Jake.
These beings don't understand human customs about personal space the way we do.
I'll do them.
The fact that you're willing to share sleeping space shows trust and respect. If you refuse, they might think we're planning to harm them during the night. The explanation made sense, but it didn't make Jake feel any better about the situation. He had always been professional with everyone he worked with, and now he was being asked to literally sleep next to 2 beings from another world. What if he did something wrong? What if he offended them without meaning to? When Jake first met Zara and Kira face to face, he was struck by how human their expressions were. Zara extended her hand in a gesture that seemed almost like a handshake, though. Her fingers were longer and more delicate than a human's. Her voice was musical when she spoke, with an accent unlike anything Jake had ever heard. "We thank you for accepting this duty," she said in careful English. "We know this arrangement is unusual for your people." Kira said nothing, but Jake could see she was studying him intently. Her silver eyes seemed to look right through him, and he wondered what she was thinking. Did she trust him? Was she afraid of him? He had no way to know. The first evening was incredibly awkward. Jake had brought a sleeping bag, planning to sleep on the floor. But Zara gently explained that this would be insulting to their customs. In their culture, a protector who slept separately was either lazy or didn't trust those he was protecting. "We understand your customs are different," Zara said softly. "But we ask that you honor ours while we are guests in your world." So there. Jake was lying stiffly on one side of the large bed, trying to take up as little space as possible while two alien beings settled in beside him. The bed was big enough that they weren't touching, but Jake had never been more aware of another person's presence in his entire life. The room was filled with the soft hum of the air filtration system and the quiet beeping of monitoring equipment. Jake stared at the ceiling, wondering how he was supposed to sleep with so much responsibility weighing on his shoulders. These weren't just any visitors. They were representatives of an entire civilization, and their safety was in his hands. As he lay there in the darkness, Jake could hear Zara and Kira whispering to each other in their own language. The sounds were beautiful, but completely alien, reminding him that he was sharing a bed with beings from another world. It was simultaneously the most terrifying and amazing experience of his life. The first night, nobody slept much. Jake was too nervous, and he could sense that his companions were equally uncomfortable. But as dawn broke through the small window, Jake realized something important. Despite all the strangeness of the situation, nothing terrible had happened. They had simply spent the night in the same room, three beings from different worlds, trying to figure out how to coexist. It was the beginning of an experience that would change Jake's understanding of friendship, trust, and what it meant to be human in a universe full of other intelligent life. Part 2. Breaking the ice the next few days were like walking through a minefield. Every morning, Jake woke up feeling like he had barely slept, and he could tell his alien companions were having the same problem. The three of them moved around, each other like strangers in an elevator. Polite but awkward. The biggest challenge was understanding each other's daily routines. Jake discovered that Ethereans didn't sleep the same way humans did. Instead of 8 hours straight, they took short naps throughout the day and night. This meant that when Jake was trying to sleep, one of them was often awake, moving around quietly or making soft sounds in their language. Zara seemed to understand that this was difficult for everyone. She would apologize in her careful English. Whenever she had to move around during Jake's sleep time, Kira was different. She would stare at Jake with those silver eyes, and he could feel her watching him, even when he had his eyes closed. It made him incredibly uncomfortable, but he didn't want to complain and seem rude. The worst part was mealtimes. The facility had prepared special food for the visitors, but they ate it in a completely different way than humans. They would hold hands and close their eyes before eating, like they were praying or meditating. Jake felt weird eating his normal food while they performed what was obviously some kind of sacred ritual. One morning, Jake couldn't take it anymore. He had been lying awake for hours, listening to Kira whisper to Zara in their musical language. Finally, he sat up and said, "I'm sorry, but I have to ask. You're talking about me?" Both aliens looked surprised. Zara's expression was kind, but Kira looked almost angry. "She is worried," Zara explained slowly. "On our culture, sharing sleep. Spaces vary. How do you say personal? It means family or very close friends. She does not understand why you do this if you do not care for us." Jake felt his heart sink. "I do care about your safety. That's my job, but I don't want to make you uncomfortable." Kira said something sharp in their language, and Zara translated, "She says you sleep like you are afraid of us. She wants to know if you think we will hurt you." "No," Jake said quickly. "I don't think you'll hurt me. I'm just trying to be respectful." In human culture, men and women who don't know each other, don't usually share beds. It's led to a long conversation about human customs that lasted through breakfast. Jake found himself explaining things he had never thought about before. Why did humans wear pajamas? Why did they sleep under covers? Why did some people snore? Zara was fascinated by everything, asking questions and taking notes on a small device that looked like liquid metal. But Kira remained suspicious, her silver eyes never leaving Jake's face when he spoke. The breakthrough came 3 days later. Jake had been working late, checking the security systems around the safe house. When he finally came back to the room, he found both aliens sitting on the bed, looking distressed. Zara was holding Kira's hand, and both of them seemed to be crying, though their tears were different from human tears. They looked more like tiny diamonds on their pale blue skin. "What's wrong?" Jake asked, immediately concerned. Zara looked up at him with those large silver eyes. We receive message from home. There are problems with our people. Some do not want peace with humans. They say we are betraying our own kind by coming here. Jake felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised him. Sorry, that must be really hard to hear. Kira is very young, Zara continued. This is her first time away from our world. She is scared that if we fail, our people will never forgive us. Without thinking, Jake sat down on the bed next to them. You're not going to fail. I've seen how hard you're working to understand us, and I'm learning too. Maybe it's supposed to be difficult at first, for the first time since arriving. Kira looked directly at Jake and spoke in English. Her voice was softer than Zara's, almost like singing. You really want to help us? Yes, Jake said simply. I want this to work out for everyone. That night, something changed. Instead of lying stiffly on opposite sides of the bed, the three of them sat together before sleep, and Jake found himself talking about his own life. He told them about his family, his fears about doing a good job, and his amazement at meeting beings from another world. Zara shared stories about their planet, describing cities that floated in the air and forests that glowed with natural light. Kira, gradually warming up, told Jake about her favorite places at home and how different everything was on Earth. Your sky is so blue, she said with wonder. Ours is more purple, and your sun feels different on skin. Jake realized that these beings were just as nervous and homesick as he would be if he were visiting their world. They weren't mysterious aliens anymore. They were people, far from home, trying to do something important and scary. When they finally settled down to sleep, Jake noticed that nobody was lying stiffly anymore. They had found a comfortable arrangement where everyone had space, but nobody felt isolated. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Jake, Zara said softly in the darkness. Thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for being patient with me, he replied. From the other side of the bed, Kira's voice came like a whisper. Good night, Jake. It was the first time she had said his name, and somehow it felt like a victory. They were finally starting to understand each other. Part 3. Growing trust. 2 weeks had passed since that first breakthrough conversation, and Jake couldn't believe how much things had changed. The awkwardness was mostly gone, replaced by something he never expected to feel with beings from another world. Genuine friendship. Every morning now started with what they called morning sharing. Zara had explained that on their planet, people began each day by talking about their dreams and hopes. Jake had been skeptical at first, but he found himself looking forward to these quiet conversations before the official day began. I dreamed about flying again, Kira said one morning, her silver eyes bright with excitement. On our world, we have creatures called sky dancers. They carry us through the clouds during festival times. That sounds amazing, Jake replied, genuinely interested. I dreamed about my sister's wedding. She's getting married next month, and I'm supposed to give a speech. I'm terrified I'll mess it up. Zara smiled in that gentle way she had. Fear of speaking is common among humans. This is interesting. On our world, young people are taught that words are gifts. The more important the moment, the greater the honor to speak. These conversations had become precious to Jake. He was learning so much about their culture, but more importantly, he was seeing Zara and Kira as individuals with their own personalities, fears, and dreams. The real turning point came during what Jake would later call the accident. He had been checking the security panel near the window when a sudden electrical surge caused the system to spark. Without thinking, he grabbed the metal housing with his bare hand to steady himself. The electrical shock sent him flying backward. Jake hit the floor hard, his hand burning with pain. He could smell burnt flesh and knew immediately that he was hurt badly. The security panel was completely fried, sparks still flying from the damaged wiring. Jake. Kira's voice was full of panic as she rushed to his side. Are you badly hurt? Tried to sit up, but the pain in his hand was incredible. When he looked at it, he could see the burn was deep and serious. I think I need medical attention, he said through gritted teeth. Zara was already moving toward him, but she stopped suddenly. Jake, we can help you, but we must ask permission first. Our healing methods are different from human medicine. Different how? Jake asked, though the pain was making it hard to think clearly. We can heal burns and injuries using our natural abilities, Zara explained. But it requires touching the wound directly, and it will create a temporary connection between us. You will feel what we feel, and we will feel your pain. Jake looked at his burned hand, then at both aliens who were watching him with concern. The facility's medical bay was 20 minutes away, and he wasn't sure he could wait that long. More importantly, he realized he trusted them completely. Please help me, he said simply. What happened next was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. Zara and Kira knelt beside him, each placing one hand on his injured hand and the other on his forehead. Their skin felt warm and seemed to glow with a soft blue light. The healing process was incredible. Ow. Jake could feel the pain flowing out of his hand, but at the same time, he could sense the effort it was taking from both aliens. He felt their concentration, their determination to help him, and their genuine care for his well-being. It was as if for those few minutes, the three of them shared the same heart. When it was over, Jake's hand was completely healed. There wasn't even a scar where the burn had been. But more than that, something had fundamentally changed between them. The healing had created a bond that went beyond friendship. That was extraordinary, Jake said, flexing his fingers in amazement. Thank you both. Kira was breathing heavily from the effort. Now you know why we were afraid to share sleeping space at first. Physical contact is very meaningful to our people. It creates connections that last. Jake understood now. The casual way humans touched each other must seem strange to beings who experienced such deep connections through physical contact. I'm honored that you were willing to help me. That evening, as they prepared for sleep, Jake noticed that the atmosphere in the room had completely changed. They weren't three strangers forced to share space anymore. They were three beings who had chosen to trust each other with something precious. Jake Zara said as they settled into their usual sleeping arrangement, we must tell you something. We did not come to your world just for peace talks. Jake felt his heart skip. What do you mean? Our planet is dying, Kira said quietly. Our sun is growing weak, and our people need to find new homes. We hoped that if humans could learn to trust us, perhaps some of our people could live here. The weight of this revelation hit Jake like a physical blow. These weren't just ambassadors. They were refugees, looking for a new home for their entire civilization. Why didn't you tell me this before? Jake asked. Because we needed to know. If humans could truly accept us, Zara replied. Not just as visitors, but as neighbors, as family. Jake looked at both of them, these beings who had become so important to him. I think I understand now why this is so important. You're not just negotiating for peace, you're negotiating for survival. Yes, Kira said simply. And in these weeks with you, we have learned that humans and Ethereans can be more than allies, can be friends. As Jake drifted off to sleep that night, he realized that his job had evolved into something far more significant than he had ever imagined. He wasn't just protecting two alien visitors. He was helping to build a bridge between two worlds, one that might save an entire civilization. The trust they had built together was becoming the foundation for something much bigger than any of them had expected. Part 4. External threats. Life in the safe house had become surprisingly comfortable. Jake had grown used to the gentle sounds of Zara and Kira's nighttime conversations, and they had learned to appreciate his terrible jokes during their morning sharing sessions. The three of them had developed routines that worked for everyone, and Jake often forgot how unusual their situation really was. That peaceful bubble was shattered on a Thursday night when Jake's communication device started beeping frantically. He grabbed it quickly, not wanting to wake his sleeping companions, but the message he read made his blood run cold. Hostile group identified. Possible breach attempt. Prepare for emergency protocols. Jake's hands shook as he read the message. Again. For weeks, security had been monitoring online chatter about the alien visitors. Most people were curious but supportive of the peace talks. However, a small group of extremists had been growing more vocal and aggressive about their opposition to any contact with other worlds. We cannot let them contaminate our planet, their leader had posted online. These creatures must be stopped before they bring more of their kind here. Jake looked at Zara and Kira, who were sleeping peacefully. On either side of him, in the soft light from the monitoring equipment, they looked so vulnerable. These beings who had shared their advanced healing technology with him, who had told him about their dying world, would become his friends. Someone wanted to hurt them just because they were different. Moving carefully, Jake slipped out of bed and activated the emergency communication system. His supervisor's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Jake, we have a problem. The extremist group we've been watching has gone dark. Our intelligence suggests they've located the safe house and are planning some kind of action tonight. What kind of action? Day whispered, his heart pounding. We don't know exactly, but they've been stockpiling weapons and talking about removing the threat before it spreads. Additional security is 20 minutes away. You need to keep everyone safe until help arrives. Jake felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. 20 minutes might as well be 20 hours if dangerous people were already on their way. He looked back at the bed where Zara and Kira continued to sleep. Trusting him to keep them safe, he began implementing the emergency protocols he had memorized, but hoped never to use. The safe house had reinforced doors and windows, backup power systems, and a direct line to military support. But Jake knew that determined people with weapons could overcome even the best security if they had enough time. As he was checking the defensive systems, he heard a soft voice behind him. Jake, what is happening? He turned to find Zara sitting up in bed, her silver eyes reflecting the emergency lighting. She had that uncanny ability to sense when something was wrong, even while sleeping. There might be people coming who want to hurt you, Jake said honestly. I'm taking precautions to keep everyone safe. Zara's expression became serious as she gently woke Kira. The two aliens listened carefully as Jake explained the situation. In simple terms, he expected them to be afraid, but their reaction surprised him. We understand, Zara said calmly. On our world, there are also those who fear change and strike out at what they do not understand. We are prepared to defend ourselves. If necessary, defend yourselves how? Jake asked. Instead of answering, Kira stood up and closed her eyes. The air around her began to shimmer, and Jake watched in amazement as her appearance changed. Her skin became harder, almost metallic, and her hands developed what looked like natural armor plating. We did not tell you all of our abilities, Zara explained as she underwent the same transformation. We are not helpless visitors. We are trained protectors of our people. Jake stared at them in shock. You're warriors? We are many things, Kira replied, her voice now carrying a strange harmonic quality. Healers, diplomats, and when necessary, defenders. Before Jake could respond, the lights went out. The backup systems kicked in immediately, bathing everything. In a red glow, through the reinforced windows, Jake could see dark shapes moving in the distance. They're here, he whispered. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Jake coordinated with the security team over his radio while Zara and Kira took positions near the windows. The safe house was designed to withstand attacks, but Jake could hear the sounds of people trying to break through the outer defenses. They have some kind of cutting equipment, Jake reported. They're trying to breach the main door. Hold your position, came the reply. Support is 15 minutes out. 15 minutes felt like forever. Jake could hear voices outside, angry and determined. Someone was giving orders, coordinating the attack. These weren't just random troublemakers, they were organized and dangerous. Main door began to buckle under the assault. Jake positioned himself between the entrance and the bed, his weapon ready. But Zara and Kira moved to stand beside him, their transformed bodies ready for battle. We fight together, Zara said simply.
Oh.
No, Jake replied firmly. My job is to protect you, not put you in danger. Your job, Kira said with a slight smile, is to keep us alive. We can help with that. When the door finally gave way, Jake was ready. But what followed was unlike anything he had trained for. The attackers expected to find helpless aliens and one security guard.
Yes.
Instead, they found 3 beings working together as a perfect team. Jake's training kicked in as he engaged the first group of intruders. Beside him, Zara and Kira moved with incredible grace and precision. They didn't try to seriously harm anyone, but they made it clear that the safe house was well defended. The battle was intense, but brief. The attackers had counted on surprise and overwhelming force, but they hadn't expected organized resistance. When backup security finally arrived, they found the situation already under control, as the attackers were taken into custody. Jake sat heavily on the bed, his hands shaking from adrenaline. Zara and Kira had returned to their normal appearance, but Jake would never forget seeing them as the powerful beings they truly were. "Are you hurt?" Zara asked, checking Jake for injuries. "I'm fine," he replied, though he wasn't sure that was entirely true. "Are you both okay?" "We are well," Kira said, sitting beside him. "But we are sorry this happened because of us." Jake looked at both of them, these remarkable beings who had risked their lives to help defend their shared home. "This wasn't your fault. Some people are just afraid of change. Fear makes people do terrible things," Zara agreed. "But tonight showed us something important. When good people stand together, fear cannot win." As dawn broke over the facility, Jake realized that their friendship had been tested in the most serious way possible. They had faced danger together and emerged stronger because of it. Part 5. New Beginnings. The weeks following the attack brought major changes to their living situation. Security protocols were updated. Jake was offered a transfer to what his supervisors called a more traditional assignment, but when they asked Zara and Kira about their preferences for a new security officer, both aliens made it clear that they wanted Jake to stay. "He has proven himself to be more than a guard," Zara explained to the facility director during the official meeting. "He is a bridge between our peoples. We trust him completely." Kira nodded in agreement. "Jake understands us. Starting over with someone new would hurt the progress we have made." Jake felt a warmth in his chest when he heard their words. Over the past month, these beings had become more than just his assignment. They were his friends, and the thought of leaving them felt wrong. The facility finally approved separate quarters for each of them, connected by a common area. It was a compromise that respected human customs while maintaining the close contact that Etherean culture required. But something interesting happened once they had their own rooms. They rarely used them for sleeping.
Ow.
"It feels strange to sleep alone now," Kira admitted one evening, as they sat in their shared common area. "For weeks we have been like family. Now these separate rooms feel empty." Jake understood exactly what she meant. His new bedroom was comfortable and private, but when he lay down alone, he missed the quiet conversations and the sense of companionship that had developed between them. "We could still share the main room sometimes if you want," he suggested. "Maybe we don't have to completely change everything." So they developed a new routine. Some nights they slept in their separate rooms, but often they would set up sleeping areas in the common room and continue their tradition of evening talks before rest. It wasn't exactly the same as sharing the single bed, but it maintained the bond they had created during this time. Jake watched the peace negotiations progress with growing excitement. Zara and Kira met daily with human diplomats, scientists, and world leaders. The conversations were complex, involving everything from shared technology to immigration policies for Etherean refugees. Jake's role evolved too. He found himself serving as an unofficial translator, not of language, but of culture. When human negotiators seemed confused by Etherean customs, Jake could explain the reasoning behind them. When Zara and Kira struggled to understand human, political processes, Jake helped them navigate the complexities. "You have become essential to this process," the facility director told Jake during a private meeting. "Both sides trust you, and you understand both perspectives. We would like to offer you a permanent position as a cultural liaison officer." The offer was everything Jake had never known he wanted. Instead of just providing security, he would be helping to build understanding between humans and Ethereans on a much larger scale. But before accepting, he wanted to talk to Zara and Kira about it. "This is wonderful news," Zara said when Jake explained the opportunity. "You would be perfect for such work." "But what about you two?" Jake asked. "The negotiations are almost finished. What happens when you go back to your world?" For a moment, both aliens were quiet. Then Kira spoke up. "We have been discussing this with our leaders at home. The first group of Etherean families will arrive next year to begin establishing a settlement. We have been asked to remain here to help them adjust to life on Earth. Jake felt a surge of joy. You're staying? For at least 5 years? Zara confirmed. And we have requested that you continue as our liaison. If you are willing, of course. I'm willing, Jake said immediately. But I have to ask, do you think this will really work? Humans and Etherians living together? Kira smiled, and Jake was struck by how natural that expression had become on her once serious face. Look at us, she said simply. A month ago, we were strangers from different worlds, forced to share the same space. We were afraid of each other, confused by each other's customs. No, we are family. She was right. Jake thought back to that first awkward night when he had tried to sleep on the floor, terrified of offending these mysterious beings. Now he couldn't imagine his life without them in it. They had taught him about their culture, their hopes and fears, their incredible healing abilities. In return, he had shared his own world with them, helping them understand everything from human humor to the importance of privacy. If we three can become so close, Zara added, then surely our peoples can learn to live together in peace. The final peace agreement was signed on a beautiful spring morning. Adata. Jake stood in the ceremony hall, watching as representatives from both worlds committed to a future of cooperation and mutual support. The document established protocols for Etherian settlement on Earth, sharing of technology and resources, and ongoing cultural exchange. As the ceremony concluded, Jake felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to find Kira beside him, her silver eyes bright with emotion. This moment would not have been possible without you, she said quietly. You showed us that humans could be trusted, that friendship could exist between our kinds. You taught me just as much, Jake replied. You showed me that being different doesn't mean being enemies, that understanding takes time, but it's always worth the effort. After the ceremony, the three of them returned to their common room 1. Last time, before moving to the new cultural center where they would work together, as they sat on the bed that had once been a source of such awkwardness, Jake marveled at how much had changed. Remember our first night here? Jake asked with a laugh. I was so worried about doing something wrong. I was convinced you were planning to harm us while we slept, Kira admitted. I stayed awake for hours watching you. I was terrified that you would both decide humans were too strange to work with, Zara added. They all laughed at the memory. That first night felt like a lifetime ago, when they had been 3 strangers struggling to coexist in an impossible situation. Now they were pioneers, building the foundation for a friendship between worlds. As Jake looked at his 2 companions, he realized that the forced sharing of a bed had become something beautiful. It had broken down barriers, created trust, and proven that understanding could overcome any difference. Their experience would serve as a model for the thousands of humans and Etherians who would follow in their footsteps. The future was bright with possibilities, and Jake couldn't wait to see what they would build together.